Hello there. Thank you so much for joining today's webinar, Enabling the Intelligent Network from Data Readiness to AI Autonomy. My name's Alex Lawrence, and I'll be the moderator for today. I'm with Telco Forge, and we aim to be a community for forging a better telecoms industry. And that community piece is important. So if you see an issue which needs addressing or a problem which just isn't being dealt with, we're here to raise awareness about it and ideally help solve it. Your input is important because if we want to see major changes in the industry, it probably means solving the thousands of small problems we face day to day. Uh, Speaking of which, if you look at the news headlines, we're often bombarded with information about initiatives in AI, about intelligent or AI native networks, and the latest innovations that promise to revolutionize telecoms and every other industry. I recently heard an executive describe the situation as a Red Queen problem, where everyone's running as hard as they can just to stay still. So I don't know about you, but to me, that doesn't sound very much like the corporate reality of the industry we live in. When there's a rapid shift, then that probably means that that's the outcome of 100 underlying changes in business technology, operations, structure, and mindset. So today, we'll aim to get a reality check on this shift to AI and automation with the help of three experts. I'd like to welcome Jesse Lynch from Ocient, a cross-industry data analytics provider. They recently published a multi-industry study into progress and blockers towards leveraging AI in major enterprises. There's Labi Belkit, ABI Research's senior analyst looking at telco AI, data science, and network automation, and Pedro Garcia Parra, Telefonica's head of network and operations automation, and part of the TM Forum's autonomous network project. So, with his experience as well at the sharp end of implementing the key ideas, he'll help keep us on track. Please note that we'll make a recording of the webinar available on the Telco Forge site. So if you miss something or need to revisit this, or even flag up the topic to a colleague, then it'll be easily findable. For now, though, let's crack on. Jesse, I'd like to hand over to you to set the scene for us in the first place. What have you been seeing at the macro level?
Sure. And you mentioned earlier, we do a survey every year around what's happening in the industry from a data analytics perspective, but it gives a view of the broader uh, industry as well. As you mentioned, AI is at the forefront and how people are leveraging AI and what they plan to do with it and how they plan to enable it and what business outcomes they plan to drive is forefront for people right now. And there are a lot of challenges and opportunities with that as well, and a lot of hype and a lot of reality. I know we'll talk a little bit today about some of the things that people are trying to do, but some of it's the same as it has always been, trying to provide better services at the right cost, while maintaining service levels and making sure that the balance of delivery and capability and trust to our customers is kept even. So when you see on your screen here, right, some of the stakes that we have seen, when we talk about CSPs and we talk about telcos, right, that ability to avoid the over provisioning of your networks, the ability to manage assets in a costly or a cost effective manner, that ability to maintain performance, ultimately to drive business capabilities. We're seeing a lot of questions and answers of how telcos are tackling those items.
Thanks, Jesse. That's a good foundation. I'd like to check in with Labi and Pedro here, though, to see what resonates with you. And Pedro, these all seem like reasonable issues, but were there any particular um, pressures there which affected your work more than others?
From our point of view of those four issues or the issues generate related to those those part of the benefits that we can improve in our company are the same or have the same importance of that. I mean, we need to reduce time, improve our quality, reduce costs, of course. So the the fact of using new technologies, new evolution, artificial intelligence, that and data of quality of the data with a high level of quality is so important to improve our processes on that. But to summarize or to emphasize this, the fourth topic, I think the fourth topic is the four issues you have shown before are so important for us.
Yeah, great, thanks. And I'll check in with Larbi because you're looking all across the telecoms continuum at these. Was there anything that stood out to you there as being either a surprise that it was included in those four topics? Maybe we can bring those up again, um, or something which leaps out to you as being, the primary thing that you hear talk about in your work.
Yes, I think the intensifying costs element is something that you're hearing on an end-to-end basis in the network, because obviously delivering better results for customers and maintaining always on demand is something that has been consistently a topic in the telecommunications industry. But now I think it's really about making sure that this is scalable and efficient from an operations perspective. And this is why we're seeing more emphasis on the use of artificial intelligence and better utilization of the network data that is available for improving the network as a whole.
Okay, brilliant. Thanks. Now, Jesse, we should probably move on. I know you've got some interesting data points coming up next. So I'll hand over to you again.
Absolutely. So those are some of the things in that first slide that people are trying to tackle, and some of the challenges toward that. Um, Out of an effort that we run every year called our Beyond Big Data uh, report findings, basically, we put some information up in front of us around what customers are saying, and these are IT business leaders in data that are providing the feedback into this information, into our surveys. And if you look at the left-hand side of this page, AI is a topic that is growing dramatically the last couple of years that we have seen in our survey. And, over 1 in 3 organizations really are feeling that they are not, ready yet for the increased complexity and scale of AI. And Pedro mentioned earlier the concept of data and how challenging that can be. Um, I'm surprised actually it's only 1 in 3 that don't feel prepared, and that 2 in 3 rightfully felt prepared. Because I do think that is a challenge in front of all companies that we've talked to. Um, uh, the biggest driver behind that, really over half of the participants said, "Hey, our biggest issue and barrier toward AI is really around data quality and preparation." And knowing that we want precise answers from AI. You have to get precise data into AI to get those answers. And that's a real challenge with the diversity of systems and third parties and the ways that companies operate today in a cloud environment, an on-prem environment, in a world environment. If we look on the right-hand side, particularly for telco um, industry vertical respondents, they were really less likely than other industries to feel ready for the increased processing demands coming with AI. So the amount of data that is coming, the amount that is needed for AI, the amount that you need to integrate in order to make sense of that data and govern that information, or understand that you are confident in what you're getting and what it means and how I'm going to use it. Telco respondents are concerned about that, and that is a real focus for telcos as they talk about potentially, allowing computers to make changes to their network in near real time. There's a real need to be precise with the information, both historically, so the data that needs to be modeled and looked at over time of how the network is operating, and then in near real time to make decisions based against that historical reality or the current reality. Um, those harnessing that data, governing that data, and making sure that it can be processed is a concern. And we've seen that across the board. And I'd be curious to see if those are challenges, Pedro, you are seeing, and Larby, if you're seeing that in the market.
Yeah, absolutely. And maybe I'll throw this over to Lobby in the first place because um, this issue of data quality and preparation kind of seems like a conversation that we might have been having 20 years ago, even before AI in any meaningful way was around. Um, I mean, is that a thing that surprises you at all?
In terms of the lack of preparedness relative to others, I would say it doesn't completely surprise me. In many discussions that we've had, there's an overwhelming view that telcos are not fully utilizing the data that's available to them because a lot of it is unstructured and there's no unified way of utilizing it. As we start talking about AI, which is not a brand new concept to the telecommunications industry, machine learning has been used for many years now. But when we're talking about some of these more innovative concepts like generative AI and now agentic AI, ensuring that there's minimal hallucinations, you can maximize the deterministic elements of data that's necessary. That's where the challenge comes in, and it requires a lot of restructuring of the way that the data is used, especially as you move into the next generation of networks where there's going to be an overwhelming theme around intent-based automation orchestration, where you have a lot of automation going end to end at different domains of the network and ensuring that there's a structured and methodical way that the data is being accessed is key to reducing this hallucination effect that is being worked on across not just the telecommunications industry, but as a whole to reduce the impact of.
Brilliant. Thanks, Lavi. And again, Pedro, um, when we're talking about this idea of the scale and the complexity of the work, in your role, obviously leading on network and operations automation, um, AI could mean a whole variety of different things, and and it would just be great to get a sense from you as to where you are in this journey. I mean, are we looking at, for example, um, principally a kind of machine learning and so on, the kind of thing that might be, say, for local radio optimization, or as Labi just mentioned, are we looking much more at sort of network wide autonomous operations that pull in a wide variety of data? I mean, where would you say you are on that journey, and where would you like to be in the end?
Okay, thank you. Well, this is something that, first of all, I don't surprise a lot this study, the results of this study, but from the point of view from our side in Telefonica, this is something that we have been trying to apply or defining from 5 years ago, more or less. We began to define because we had seen that the evolution of technologies or new network elements, the new complexity of our networks related in our networks, it was incremental. So we defined 4 years ago a company program that is called Autonomous Network Journey that covers all of the topics that you have mentioned here. More even more because we are covering also technology evolution and new ways of working about reskilling and so on. But based on or focusing on data and artificial intelligence on that, we have put the basis for evolve our networks because we have thinking on data. We have a lot of challenges on that. We have a lot of challenges with the data governance, with the system integration, of course, with people and culture, AI culture and compliance issues. So there are a lot of topics around data and data evolution that we are we are prepared, and we have been preparing and working on that during these years in order to prepare our company in the evolution and putting the basis for all of them in learning, evolving the data, putting the right data on that. So as I said, we have working with our program on that, and also evolving our processes, including artificial intelligence on that, just not machine learning, as mentioned before, but also generative AI, the new architecture with agentic AI, and so on. This is something that we are studying, evolving, and testing a lot to improve and to introduce in our network. So being seeing this study, and I think it's right, but I think we are in the part of the companies that we are almost prepared for the evolution on that. So and as I say, how we see our evolution, or where we want to go in the end of this journey. As you said, we are so involved in autonomous network program with TM Forum, and as you know, this is measured like, or this is measured like by an scale of levels between 0 to 5. So we are measuring ourselves in the with that scale, and we are evolving a lot of our autonomy. So we are in more or less in a level 3.5, and we want to achieve level 4 on 2030. So we are evolving a lot. We are evolving, I think, well, and we are doing a lot of things with a lot of issues, as mentioned before. But I think we are going in the right way to achieve our target, and to evolve our network in that way, in order to have good data and good processes based on artificial intelligence.
Fantastic, thanks. Um, I think I like to sort of pick up on some of the things that you've said, but maybe if we move to the next slide, it kind of brings up a number of these issues um, in terms of where people want to go and what the roadblocks are. And I mean, as Pedro mentioned, there's a very big move underway, but Larby, something, and maybe Jesse, you can talk to this as well, is pretty much everybody's trying to build their smarter systems on top of generations of legacy systems and data repositories. Um, it sounds as though building everything out to start again on that would be impractical. So, are you seeing a sensible way forward in terms of overlaying intelligence or autonomy onto what's already there? Or is there a third path that I haven't talked of yet?
No, it's a good question. And I think from my perspective, the one thing it's important to understand is this move to upgrading any element of the network, whether that be the edge, core, or even the data domain, from our perspective right now, is not being done simply for the sake of it. It's with a clear understanding of what the end goal should be or what the outcome is. And most of the time now, you're seeing the outcome be a clear and defined ROI. So when it comes to upgrading the use of AI and the use of the data to enable the AI, obviously, like you said, a complete refresh is not feasible, it's not practical. So you'll likely see a lot of partnerships being established with the experts in the automation and AI domains to accelerate this process. You'll see partnerships in terms of creating vertical specific LLMs and foundation models, and then how to implement agentic capabilities into the network. And then also it's really about understanding how much of that data is distributed versus centralized, and whether it's something that the telcos can actively act on and automate at level they're comfortable with. If you like, Pedro mentioned the TM forum levels of automation. It goes from level 0 to level 5. On a global basis, the average would be somewhere between the levels of 2 and level 3. And there is an industry-wide initiative for all operators to strive to reach level 4 by 2030. And for that, it's really about understanding this data layer and how to use that in the AI era, so to speak.
Thanks. Jesse.
And yeah, I'd weigh in there. Very, very well put, Marby. I agree. Great way to articulate that. And I think this is an age-old architectural challenge, and this is the next set of use cases that are going to bounce sort of cost and business value to help telcos make decisions of how to incrementally make progress in this space. And I know we're seeing in talking to customers, that concept of certain use cases that may be simpler than others. And you put in pieces of that architecture that do interact with potentially legacy platforms and can be supported by legacy platforms. And in the data space, potentially bringing that information into a more modern data architecture, but your core systems remaining in a legacy state. Or there are reasons where this is the time that some telcos who have run through 2G, 3G, 4G, 5G, 5G standalone are finding for some of their systems, it may be time to bite the bullet, so to speak, and to make those larger investments because they see the value and the benefit coming from those. And there's also several generations behind in catching up to what data is coming off of these networks, what companies that they're integrating with, and the ways that they need to, as this page shows, get to more real-time intelligence, connect that to historical predictive analytics outcomes, and bring those things together to get those business outcomes such as autonomous network or a full visibility into network. And in certain cases, there is an upgrade required, or there is a new technology required to make that happen. And on the good side, there's a lot of dollars on the table here, and I'm sure Pedro lives this every day of how expensive it can be to run these networks and how much operational expense could be potentially saved if this is done effectively. And some of these roadblocks of scale and data freshness and governance are solved for to really get the benefit of a high performant, well tuned, quality outcome for customers' network.
Yeah. And that's sorry, Labi.
No, just to say that you both have summarized what our day by day, our daily work. I mean, we have to deal with the evolution, but with our traditional system, technologies, and so on, and decided if the evolution is enough or we need to evolve our networks to introduce artificial intelligence to move our data on a more modern or more efficient architecture. But we have to take in account the business, the economical effort, and the budget and so on. So maybe in sometimes we need to be a bit more time with legacy system and kind of silos try to open them just to use the data because the investment on that is so expensive in relation with the benefits that we can achieve.
Well, I'd actually like to pick up on that if that's okay, because we've mentioned a few times now. We've dropped in the word ROI or business case or this kind of thing, and there seems to be a general feeling in the industry that moving towards more autonomy is a good thing and it's desirable in terms of cost savings and more flexibility and all this kind of thing. But I wonder, how much is it quantifiable? Um, I mean, for example, Pedro, um, when you talk about your budget, presumably that's being developed based on something, but is that based on an understanding in detail of what benefits in terms of cost savings or potentially new revenues that automation can bring, or how do you work that, and does that make it straightforward to sort of find new budget if you need it for something important?
Yes, you can manage, or we are managing that in two ways because in the first point is managing related to operational indicators. So this is more easy to understand and to identify, because if we improve our operational indicators, mostly they are related to OpEx. So we can or say cost saving really. So we can move by that. The only the other way is okay, but for that, for applying just this is the case for traditional case for automation. But if we need to apply artificial intelligence, we need to deploy a data platform or a data lake or federated that data lake and prepare the data for that. All the work behind that, all the work behind the models, artificial intelligence models, the GNA, whatever we need to apply about artificial intelligence, this is more difficult to quantify because you need to quantify the efforts or for preparing the landing zone for the artificial intelligence use cases or for preparing the data platform in the middle long term, because if not, just the cost to apply the cost for just all the artificial intelligence platform for just one use case or high value scenario is impossible. So you can quantify from the point of view of cost saving, human hours and so on, but also always related to operational indicators. Over that, I don't know. I don't really know how to define a direct relation with that. It's so difficult.
Yeah, no, that's a good point, and I wonder actually if this is something where Jesse can comment, sort of being on the maybe the other side of that uh, table. I mean, how do you have that conversation with people?
Yeah, no, I think those are great points, and what we've heard from our customers or when I was at T-Mobile, there was always a couple of sides of the ledger. One was a cost saving side for sure, and how, particularly in the network, how do you run that more precisely? How do you spin down compute at certain points of the day? How do you get more precise in how you run things so you don't have idle capacity? And the other side was new capabilities. I've heard, quite a bit of conversation here in the United States around private 5G offerings, with different SLAs. So, taking the bandwidth and slicing it up in different ways for different service levels. So not necessarily bringing them, running the network at less capacity, but better using the capacity that's there, or using it as it's a mobile company, but doing internet providing and being able to manage that network to not have to grow or buy any more bandwidth, but utilize that bandwidth more effectively, or resell that to others to use more effectively. And to do all of those things, you still need to get through the roadblocks that are shown in front of us here. You still need to be more precise with the knowledge of the information coming off of the network, both the backplane information and the user plane. You need to pair that sort of historical information with more real-time intelligence and what's happening in the moment on the network to make sure the SLAs are met while you're not, have idle bandwidth sitting there, and ultimately make your lives hopefully simpler and more effective for your RF engineers, for your resources, so they can do more, higher level work versus moving antennas 2 degrees to the left in a certain moment. And I think, we talked earlier, there's this progression that, at least from conversations I've had with some telcos around, fully autonomous networks are a ways away. Certain use cases are definitely coming online, and certain better ways to give information to the people on the ground, through LLMs, through better interfaces to make quicker decisions or to confirm, yes, this is the right decision right now to make on my network, to be as efficient with it as possible given the constraints. Those are happening and those roadblocks are starting to come down, but they're still working it.
Great, thank you. There's something that kind of touches upon this, but then goes further, and that's the issue of skills. So um, we need to have the right levels of understanding in place. I mean, clearly, not just in the technical teams, but then potentially also in other parts of the business. For example, to for telcos to manage their own evolution or to direct vendors in the right way. But even amongst potentially commercial teams and so on, to understand what the implications or the opportunities might be of doing X or Y. And I'd like to start with uh, Labi and then come to Pedro for his thoughts on this. But um, you know, we talk about a roadblock here in terms of these skills gaps, but to what extent do you see that in practice, Labi, in your conversations with people in the telecoms industry? And are we able to fill that skills gap at the moment? Do you think?
Well, I'd say that's a loaded question. So, from my perspective, it's important to understand that telcos have a lot of specialized expertise that may not be directly transferable to understanding data and artificial intelligence, especially generative AI and so forth. So there is this ever ongoing discussion about how democratized should data be. That's really down to the policy that a telco sets. When it comes to the skills gap as it relates to utilizing AI thoroughly, this is not something that is unique to telcos in particular. This is something that's all over the world right now as a challenge. But we are seeing some efforts to implement low and no code generative AI tools to assist radio engineers in helping to automate the network. So I'll use the concept of Open RAN as an example here. There is this automation concept within it called RApps, so non-real-time automation applications, which are standardized with an open interface. And there are efforts now with many brownfield operators to develop their own applications in open sandboxes on their supplier's platform. So their radio engineers can do so in a low to no code environment. And then this is deployed in a much more streamlined fashion. This is a way to bridge the skills gap, but this is merely the first step. We will likely see perhaps a change in the skill structure internally. More AI experts are brought in into the telco teams moving forward. But this is what I would say is the first step in that journey.
Yeah, brilliant. And now, Pedro, maybe your thoughts on that in terms of that. Do we need more of those AI specialists being brought in, or how do you see that development?
I think, from my perspective, we need to evolve on the knowledge of artificial intelligence modeling and coding that it's real. From my perspective, I think is as I said before, technician or operators in the network has a lot of expertise on that, on the business, of course, but also they are learning how to make some developments, how to code some algorithms on some new technologies, some new tools, and of course there is needed also a process of reskilling of some kind of people. But I think it's necessary to evolve to have more knowledge on new technologies, artificial intelligence, data preparation, data government. I think we need all the industry to get more skills on that. I mean, we need to move not just our business knowledge about our part of the network, but also programming of the network and having skills about programming and managing the artificial intelligence and data more or deeper. So I maybe that from my point of view. Sorry, just the last thing. I think it's more efficient for that to try to to try to teach people from business to learn how to program or how to code, that in the other side people who is very good programmer or to 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 learn them or to teach them how our business works. So from a point of view, it's the better way.
Okay, fantastic. So it's really sort of upskilling the people with the specialist knowledge in telecoms to be able to also apply that in the AI realm. Um, I mean that's fascinating. Um, and having said that, we have touched briefly there on governance. Um, I I don't want to spend too long on this because we have talked about it before, but arguably, um, in 3G, telcos were a bit cautious with location-based services in terms of compliance uncertainties, sharing customer data and that kind of thing, and lost out on location-based services to things like GPS. Um, I wonder, are we in a better position now to use and monetize information in a safe way? Um, I'm going to throw that to Jesse first because you've got this industry perspective.
Sure. I mean, that's to your point. That's been a challenge and an opportunity for a long time with telcos, and the technologies existed. Some of it has been around customers and making sure that customers would like that as well, and privacy, and a lot of the things that get wrapped around, the ability for a telco to really know a lot of information around that customer and to use it hopefully for that customer's benefit. I do think technology-wise, telcos are in a good spot for that. I know that from an advertiser's perspective, for example, in the United States, the telcos do some of this and provide some of that data anonymously into combined interfaces for advertisers to utilize. And that has been one of those challenges is if we go to a stadium, an advertiser wants everybody's information, not just a certain carrier's information. So I do think I've seen the industry evolve to use that information more and more, and be able to quote unquote monetize aspects of what a customer is doing with the appropriate opt-ins, with the appropriate, legal support of what is happening, because that is powerful data. And I think that that's the balance that telcos always find is I have that information. How can I use it, both, for revenue generating purposes and, respecting what my customer base wants out of that location situation. So I think they're there. I think it continues to evolve, and I think it's a lot country by country as well, depending on what laws are in place and what cultural, requirements or needs are, within that area.
Super, thanks. And I'd love to talk about some of the things on this slide a bit longer, but ever at my back I hear time's winged chariot hurrying near. And we have a few minutes left, so I'd like to ask each of you a question, actually, the same question. On the final slide, there's a very simplified evolution path towards autonomous networks and operations here. Um, so, what I'd like to ask you all is, as we're looking ahead to the next 12 months or so, what are the most important changes that you expect or hope to see to move us from the left hand side of that slide to the right? Um, and maybe I can start with you, Pedro, in terms of what your priority is with either Telefonica or the TM Forum.
The only thing is not just a journey of 12 months. This is a journey of a lot of years. So, but this picture is right. You need to be to have a good governance of the data and to prepare your data readiness, and then at least this is one of the basis of giving the network the capability of being intelligent. So The most important thing here is to put the basis to have the capabilities to go through autonomous network, autonomous operation, and so on. From the point of view, those are the basis. In network intelligence, we put also automation and artificial intelligence on that. We mix both topics, and that's the right way. I mean, prepare the data, have a right governance of the data, have modify your processes in order to improve with artificial intelligence automation on that, and then you will get autonomous operation on that. As I said, we are measuring ourselves by the TM Forum scale from 0 to 5. So this is a long journey during those years. Just maybe the next 12 months, as you have asked, maybe we are going to improve our networks. We have because we have had or we have put the basis before in terms of data and processes.
Thank you. And Jesse, maybe your thoughts on the year ahead. Are there particular things that people ought to be looking out for, that would, if it happens, mark some kind of inflection point?
Yeah, it's a good question. I'm not sure if I can think of it an inflection point, but I'm excited to see, particularly as the LLM space and the corporate LLM space gets more sophisticated, and some of the tools that we mentioned earlier that are being developed, some really concrete use cases being shared out of the telcos of where that focus has found its success. Being a data geek, I love working at Ocient because we love to provide a lot of that information, but that information doesn't matter unless it drives business value. And so I'm excited to see some of those autonomous network use cases and the evolution of the knock potentially continue to happen over the next 12 months. And then the addition or a parallel stream of security use cases along with core network use cases. I think we're seeing quite a bit in the security space, in fairness, as we've talked about how complex networks have become. Um, Along with that, there have been more sophisticated bad actors who have come along the way. And I am curious to see those types of use cases and similar data being used for outcomes such as that. And I'm just excited because as we sit here at Ocient, we get to be a part of some of this, hopefully with our customers around really storing and managing those large sets of data and helping with those use cases evolution. And I think this next year we have the pieces of puzzle, and now it's how are those business value opportunities surfacing, and the stories from the TM Forum and other organizations. I'm excited to hear over the coming year.
Great, thanks. And Larby, just to wrap it up, what are you going to be looking for, do you think, in 2026?
Well, there's a lot I'll be looking for, I'll be completely honest here. But in terms of from this perspective, I think I'd take it a step further beyond large language models. I think there's going to be a lot of discussions at many trade organizations and conferences and so forth around the agentic AI space and agentic systems. I think going back to the ROI perspective, generative AI doesn't have, as we've said before, as a clear cut ROI model compared to perhaps an AI agent would. And I think the implementation discussions and the trials that have been undertaken currently will be really interesting. And I think those will have more well defined use cases and easier ROIs to prove. And I think this is where the discussion will be moving forward, especially as telcos get ready for the 6G deployments coming in the 2030 timeframe. I think this is where we'll be hearing a lot. And inevitably, as part of that, the data aspect of it is foundational, as we always say. But I think there needs to be an emphasis here that the AI agents only work with what is available and what it's presented with. And if it's not presented with something that's clear, it will not give you the clear return that you want. That's what I'll be looking for. How much the data aspect or the data conversation feeds into the trials and results when it relates to the agentic AI in telco.
Fantastic. Thanks, Larby. Um, and I realize that we're coming up to time now. And as ever with a webinar, this has been a great way to get some answers, but also maybe a better way to inspire more questions. So if you're watching this and you have questions for us or want to follow up with any of the speakers, please do drop me a line. You can reach me at alex.lawrence@telcoforge.com, and I'll help you any way I can with that. Um, for now, though, I'd like to thank Labi, Pedro, and Jesse for their time. I'd like to thank you for your attention. And until next time, goodbye.